Welcome to Renegade Thinkers Unite, a show that will help you transform your marketing from mere messaging to programs that break the rules and make a difference. Join the movement today and learn non-traditional techniques that give you an edge. Now, here's your Chief Marketing Renegade, Drew Nizer.
Welcome to another edition of Renegade Thinkers Unite. My guest today is Rob Rakowitz, who is the Global Director of Media at Mars. Welcome, Rob.
Thank you for having me, Drew.
It's incredible to imagine what it must be like to work at Mars with all those candy bars surrounding you. I just have visions of an office with nothing but Mars bars and M&Ms. Is that the way it is?
It is, and I can tell you that it sometimes is a struggle to stay fit, especially with vending machines that don't accept dollars and just you punch them and the candy comes straight out.
The benefits of working for and on Mars. So that's very cool. So you are, as Global Media Director, you probably didn't just wake up one day and become that. I imagine you had to take a number of steps to get there. Talk to me a little bit about what prepared you for your current job.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a wonderful question, and my career path is a little bit non-linear, and because I went over from the creative side to the research side, and then back to the media side, and then back to the creative side, and then back to the media side. And it's been really interesting watching the discipline of communications planning and media just really evolve out of what it used to be, which was just delivery of creative, to now taking in technology and data and content and consumer understanding, and then also now understanding how it drives into not just reach, but also conversion. So it's been really interesting. And most recently, I was in a global role. I was helping clients think through data and content, and also taking on a very much of a capability building role. So it was a great next opportunity and evolution in my career to be able to take on the role that I currently do have at Mars.
Media is a really hard and complicated job these days. I mean, with digital and television, and I've talked to a number of brands that have, they went heavy digital and then suddenly noticed that the business declined without TV. It must be very challenging to sort all of these choices out for all of these different brands.
Absolutely, it is. And the main thing that you can actually do in a very large global organization is give teams the resources to navigate, because we aren't dealing in a less complex world. Every day it becomes more and more complex. You see news hitting the press in terms of viewability and measurement data. So it's almost like there's never a dull moment in this business. And the only thing that you can do in this role is really equipping teams with the right navigation tools, so that they can actually wade into this, unknown and increasingly complex territory and be able to actually drive growth from it.
So it's really, your background is so interesting, having gone creative back to media, and that must shape your perspective on it. I always like to ask people what their personal superpower is, or the one that perhaps that you wish you had.
I think that the superpower that I wish I would have is probably being able to not have to sleep and just constantly be able to go. And that's just because of the number of conversations that you naturally would find yourself wanting to be part of. But, in terms of, having to sort of drive focus, I think that's probably been the key thing that's been helps to drive success, is being able to help people understand at the end of the day what they're not trying to do is the terribly complex, and then really being able to help them dimensionalize the challenge the right way and be able to navigate it and break it down. So I would probably say that that's been the big thing that's been a turning point in driving effective communications for as many brands and as many markets as we have out there.
So you would like to not be able to sleep. Well, there was I think it's a famous philosopher, I can't remember his name, who would basically put a spoon on their nose, and then they would wait until they drifted off. And in between the time that the spoon left their nose and landed on the thing, that was all the sleep they would get. And then they would work for 4 hours. So you could try that. I don't recommend it necessarily, but it seemed to work for this famous philosopher, and perhaps.
Yeah, I don't think it would win me any points at the office if I did that.
Okay, so tell me one story about you in your personal life or professional life that will help me understand what makes you tick.
Yeah, sure. I think a perfect story there is probably having worked on, in an office setting, and then also being part of a cycling team. What it's really helped me do is really be able to, look and obsess over data. Just because a lot of, with the Internet of Things and the sensors that are out there, it really gives you so much information in terms of performance and the way that things are looking at from an individual perspective. And much in the way that there's a lot of data out there in terms of consumer behaviors and market research, and being able to actually distill this down and understanding key challenges has been key. The other element on it that is a similarity is just the idea of teamwork. And making sure that you actually are bringing multiple functions together. Much in the way that you would approach a big race, and having people on a team actually work together in a high performance capacity, and being able to actually have distinct roles, much in the way that you want to do that for launching a really great campaign. So making sure that you're bringing multiple perspectives around the table and actually forming a bit of a SWAT team has been critical as well. And then also timing, just knowing that what you've got to do is be able to understand that, yes, you got to be strong consistently throughout a season, but you also know that there are certain points in times that you got to peak, and you take that sort of same philosophy over into the brand marketing space. It's what I like to do is say that that brands need to navigate this idea of being timeless, being able to actually stand for something and be recognized, but also being timely and knowing when is the right time to actually engage in topical, social media and moments in culture that actually matter. So, those three things that I talked about right there is the way that we've been able to drive some really great work out of some of the stuff with Snickers, some of the campaign work with Skittles, with Five Gum, with Uncle Ben's. So it's really a philosophy that I've been able to take out of work and bring into the office, and it's something that a lot of folks have been able to pick up on and make their own.
That's very cool. I have visions of a conference room where you are walking around it and several people are drafting behind you and pedaling as fast as they can. I imagine that's not how it works.
No.
Okay. So let's just, as we wrap up this section of the show, what's the best piece of advice you've ever received from a peer, and how has that influenced your career?
I think one of the best advices that I've gotten from people around me is just simplify, because as media is starting to hit more and more functions within marketing, but even outside of it, whether it happens to be general management, whether it happens to be sales or e-commerce, is the more that you can just sort of simplify down what it is that we're trying to do from a vision perspective, and make sure that it travels, whether it's cross functions or borders. That's probably the best thing that we have is just focus and simplicity.
You know, I'm a big fan of simplicity, but I have to tell you, it is really hard. And with that, it is really hard, and it takes a lot of work to get to simple. But anyway, that's great advice. And when we get back, I will ask Rob about his CMO Club award and all the very cool things that they're doing on content marketing. So we'll be right back.
Renegade Thinkers Unite is brought to you by Social Media Explorer, the website that explores the world of social media from the inside out. Great advice from today's leading social media columnists and experts at socialmediaexplorer.com. That's socialmediaexplorer.com.
Okay, I am back with Rob Rakowitz, the Global Director of Media at Mars, Inc. First of all, congratulations on winning a CMO Club award.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
So you won in the category of content marketing. Let's zero in on that. Give us an example of what one of these brands and what content means.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I'm very fortunate because what I've been doing is stoking a lot of conversations and setting people up. So I'm absolutely flattered that I won an award for what I see as being a cheerleader. The real people who have won this have been in segment and in market. And it's a great honor for me to accept this on behalf of the organization. Now, some of the great work that we've been doing, I point to some of the stuff that we've done with Uncle Ben's in the UK, what we've done with Whiskers globally, what we've been doing with Pedigree, and then also with Snickers. It's been absolutely fantastic because these are all brands that have really truly understood that they need to reach more and more consumers. And the way that they're going to reach more consumers is not just by throwing advertising out there, but is by actually really figuring out what is their brand's purpose, where does it stand in culture, and how can they actually provide a solution that brings the brand, consumer, and customer together. It's what I really like to call this idea of 4Cs convergence, where we bring consumers, customers, communications, and commerce closer together. And really that's where we've seen a lot of our impactful content play.
So I'm very familiar with the Pedigree. So let's talk about Uncle Ben's for a second, because I think some of us might scratch our heads and go, wait, Uncle Ben's, content marketing, having a purpose. What's Uncle Ben's purpose?
Yeah, so Uncle Ben's is about helping consumers really make sure that they're making great food choices. And they're doing that on a daily basis. And it's really interesting because when you get into the data, we find out that consumers who start meals with rice are more likely to choose a lean protein or a vegetable to go along with it. So it actually leads to healthier outcomes from an eating perspective. So it's really, really interesting. So if you actually get more Uncle Ben's to more consumers, more healthy outcomes, all of a sudden, some of the, health issues that we see endemically in the developed world might actually start to go away, which is a really, really awesome message to get out there. And that's actually what stands behind a lot of what we do from a content perspective and Ben's Beginners. So what we actually ended up doing in the UK is we had this new product out there. It was ready to heat. So it comes in this little pouch, really, really quick and easy meals to make, and they're also incidentally healthy. What we found out was that consumers weren't aware of it. They didn't see it as being relevant. So luckily enough, we had smart agency folks and smart marketing folks, BBDO, MediaCom, and then our own internal associates, what we call our triad, working together. And what they decided is that a typical TV spot wasn't going to fit the bill because, one, it wasn't going to reach the right audience, and two, it wasn't going to overcome the relevance issue. So what they ended up doing was creating a series of video shorts, 8 of them, in fact, 2 minutes in length. They put them up online. They looked at the behavioral metrics. They figured out what videos were popping and which recipes were actually working, because the content idea around it was a celebrity chef who basically shows up to a park, starts cooking meals, and is engaging people who are living healthy and active lifestyles, and is able to actually show them in 2 minutes or less how to actually cook a healthy meal. So with these 8 videos that we had out there, we looked at the behavioral metrics. We then figured out, how do we actually take that 2-minute video? How do we cut it down to a 30? Which ones do we want to put on TV? Which ones do we want to boost in paid media? How do we actually want to have this live in Twitter and Facebook and in Instagram? So it was a very content-driven idea backed by data that we then actually used it to what we would say called, taking content and then propagating it up. So really, really fantastic story about how a brand understood what it could do, and then used that to understand what it should do for content. And it actually yielded some really nice business results for us on the back end.
That's a really interesting story, and I'll tell you why. I've been in a couple of circumstances where they didn't quite do it that way, and I think one of the most underutilized or underused aspect of social media, YouTube or Facebook, is it's so easy to test, consumer reactions to videos, right? I mean, you can put it up there, you can give it a little bit of support, and you can tell between those 8. And were there some of the videos that ended up surprising you that were better than and people responded to more than the folks expected?
You know what? I actually didn't. I wasn't thrown by any of the results. Actually, I was actually really encouraged by the fact that it confirmed a lot of our behavioral insights on this audience. I guess for some of the folks, they were surprised that some of the ethnic dishes were actually popping up there as well, which actually allowed us to personalize the campaign a bit more as well, which was definitely fun.
Now, I mean, one of the things that, some folks would say, well, why not just do the whole thing digital? And, you created those 2-minute spots, you can put them up on YouTube, you can promote the heck out of them. But at least from my experience, you can't quite get the reach that you're looking for. Is that why these 2-minute spots were ended up editing down to 30 and then put on television?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that any marketer worth their salt today knows that, if you're dealing with mass audiences and mass reach, I think it's not a question of but it's a question of and, because what you want to do is have really a video neutral approach where you're thinking about multiple channels in combination. Are there certain brands where a digital only approach will make sense? Absolutely. I'm really excited to see a lot of brands out there that are having a digital first and a digital only approach to things. But for our scale brands, what we love to do is think of an and model, not an or model.
Yeah, I mean, certainly wherever the customer is, you need to be there, but it's still hard to get reach without TV, which is just one of those things. So
absolutely.
I think so that was a really interesting case. And you mentioned Whiskers. Let's move from rice to cats. How was that program rolled out from a content standpoint?
Yeah, absolutely. So Whiskers is great. We actually rolled out probably one of our first ever global content plays, and I think it's probably one of the few ones that we actually have that is truly global. And what we ended up doing there was we recognized that people who are adopting cats, or kittens rather, weren't really equipped with all of the knowledge and insights that they should have as new pet owners. And what we did is we created a fun and irreverent content series called Kitten College. You can find it on YouTube. Where we actually take a very tongue-in-cheek way of equipping new kitten parents with all of the content and insight that they need in order to understand the life stages and the leaps forward in development that their kitten is going through. And what we were able to do at the same time was raise the brand's profile in terms of delivering these insights, but also gave them the opportunity to go ahead and buy with the partnership that we had with with Google and YouTube, and then eventually some of our retail partners in local markets. So what we were able to do there was what I would like to say is edutain, which was we educated and entertained at the same point in time, and then also we're able to close the gap with commerce.
Renegade Thinkers Unite is brought to you by Social Media Explorer, the website that explores the world of social media from the inside out. Great advice from today's leading social media columnists and experts at socialmediaexplorer.com. That's socialmediaexplorer.com.
I love that story because it fits into a framework that I call marketing as service, in which marketing actually has value, inherent value, both obviously the entertainment, but also the education. The one thing that someone might say is, well, you educated everybody about kittens, but what connects that to the brand Whiskers?
Yeah, absolutely. So the way that we did that was it was literally a serial content series, and it was actually done in with a lot of the insights that we have out of our pet institutes up in Waltham in the UK, which is where a lot of our research happens to happen with pets and development. So a lot of the insights that we shared were actually proprietary to Mars, and was done on a lot of the research that we did. So it was actually 100%, based on our findings within the industry.
That's very cool. And I imagine a program like that could have gotten some PR too, because Kitten College just sounds too cute for words.
Absolutely.
So as you look at with the Kitten College example, you had commerce to sort of support the validity of the program. How did you measure the success of the Uncle Ben's program?
Yeah, absolutely. So the way that the two measures that we're obsessed with is reach and then also sales. I think that's one of the big things that keep us focused in on what does good actually look like. So those are the ways that we measure consistently across campaigns and efforts, and that's what we did in the Uncle Ben's case. So we were looking at the overall reach of the content program, and then also did some A/B testing to actually make sure that there was a positive sales lift for what we did. So that's generally the way that we look at measurement. Now, within the campaign is, I did talk about some of those behavioral metrics that we actually optimized against, and those were things like view-throughs and shares, comments, and then we also do, on occasion, some biometric work where we actually look at eye tracking, and we actually look at some of the other biometric measures as well to determine whether or not things are popping with consumers. But that's much more of a lab environment. What we did here was 100%, behavioral digital metrics that are available to a lot of marketers. And the question is, are we truly leaning into those as a marketing community and embracing those as much as we could and should be? And I think that's very much an agenda item for a lot of my colleagues out there, is taking more and more advantage of things at hand to drive better planning, strategy, and activation.
So you mentioned global for Whiskers, and I'm just curious, does that mean that Kitten College got translated into multiple languages?
Yes, it did.
Wow.
And we have been rolling it out market by market. So certain markets, I think we have it dubbed, and other markets we actually have it subtitled. But yeah, it is a global program.
Well, I'm going to have to take a look. I just have visions of kitty professors meowing advice at me. So it sounds like a great program. So in thinking about the future of video, the future of media, I mean, you must have spent a lot of time with things like mobile and augmented reality and virtual reality. Mobile is sort of a given that's just where things are consumed. But is there something out there right now that you're really excited about in terms of the future of media consumption?
I think the things that I'm most interested in is I get obsessed with the potential for data and ecosystems, and I would say it's not probably one thing. It's a theme that cuts across different areas, and I would say that it's basically, if you have to sort of say that it's data and ecosystems, the things that interest me the most are the potential for what connected TVs could actually do. So the notion that your PlayStation, your Xbox would be able to understand, internet searches, what you're watching on TV, what games you're playing, or what apps you're using to view certain content, and it actually becoming more and more smart and actually acting like a concierge. So that's something that actually makes me really excited, because what you could and should be able to do on that platform would be super robust. Another area that sort of excites me when you talk about that connectivity of data and ecosystems is really about health and nutrition. So the idea that, your Garmin might be able to have a conversation with your refrigerator and then be able to understand, like, hey, look, you had this really great workout. You're gearing up for, a race. In a few weeks' time, you need to really be thinking about, bulking up on, lean proteins and low glycemic carbs. And this is what your Amazon order should look like. And then also, finally is just, a lot of the data that some of our e-commerce and content partners have. So, I'm really excited by some of the things that I'm seeing out of Tencent in China and some of the work and collaboration that we're doing there, and being able to understand how content and commerce and the consumer path to journey and path to purchase actually look like. Those, as a theme, data and ecosystems and driving consumer understanding and being able to translate that over into solutions. That's what really has me super excited about what's next in media.
Wow. Well, that's a lot of ground that you just covered there. It sounded like addressable TV, which could create the opportunity for one-to-one programmatic like you have on digital right now. It sounded like IoT and Internet of Things and the connectivity between products that would also create some new opportunities. And then, as you said, content to commerce is certainly one of the big areas. And it's funny that China has, particularly in app land, seems to have a lead, which is really quite interesting. So as we wrap up here, let's just maybe you could talk about from a media perspective standpoint, as you approach a budget and looking at 2017, give us 2 do's and 1 don't.
That's a great question. Do, I would say 2 do's for you is, I would say obsess over the business challenge. Don't be lazy about briefing in the agency and really being able to uncover where your growth should be coming from and how does that actually translate down to a real tangible consumer behavior. So that's my first do. My second do is embrace the ability to be agile. So don't think about planning your full budget out. And actually think about holding some back so you can span that idea of being both timely as well as timeless, as I said before. And then the don't is don't message push. Think about creating an experience and a solution. Those are the biggest points of recommendation that I could give a fellow marketer right now.
And I love those all. I love the fact that we obsessed at the beginning. We had to spend a lot of time on strategy. That was one of Thomas Edison's secrets. And Einstein's secret, spent a lot more time on the problem as opposed to the execution. Being agile, what a smart way to think about it is experiment. Leave some money for experimentation and learning as you go, so you can adapt your budget. And then finally, one of my favorite, I've been fighting against marketing as message and trying to turn it into a service for a long time. And certainly the Kitten College is a great example of a service that is entertaining as well. So the consumer actually welcomes it onto their phone or onto their desktop or onto their TV. So Rob Rakowitz, thank you so much for your time and being on Renegade Thinkers Unite.
Thank you so much, Drew.
This has been Renegade Thinkers Unite, but it doesn't end there. Just go to renegadethinkersunite.com for more and subscribe to the show. That way, you'll never miss an episode. We'll talk with you next time on Renegade Thinkers Unite.